Okay, so we're going to start with the label first. And there's a few different ways that you can do this. You can go ahead right on the back of the quilt. It will definitely not get lost that way. So if you wanted to do something like that, you can purchase labels that are already printed for you and then write just your name in there and your date. You can make your own. A few things that you can use for your label. Heat and bond. I like to use that on my labels. You don't have to, but I like to use it on the back of the fabric that I'm going to use for my label. It just helps bond it a little bit better, easier to put the label on because it holds it in place while you are stitching, and just I like how that works. You can also use fabric sheets. It comes with a little extra piece of paper so it's a little firmer. You run it through your machine and get a nice printed label so you don't have to do anything with that. I have this set of labels available as a free download. You can find the link in the description below. We have all of the seasons, spring, summer, fall, and winter, and I will be using this for my label. My only recommendation for this is that you print it out first, so that you know that it is printing out correctly before you use it. You don't want to waste your fabric sheet or your ink. I'll be using my little bee. For any of these, you'll also need a fabric pen of some sort so that it will stay on your fabric as it is washed. And then I like to have a piece of lined paper that I have drawn with a black Sharpie so that I can put this behind and see the lines. That way I know I am writing a fairly straight line and I don't have a little bit of a slant going. So I like to do that for any of the labels that I am making. Now with these fabric sheets, you will still need a heat and bond if you like to use that. But again, once you peel the paper, it's going to be fabric and you can sew it on as you usually would anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and write on my label here and then cut it out, and then we will add it to the back of our spool. Once you have your label printed or the heat and bond is set and ready, then you're going to want to add your information. So for this one, I just went ahead, I named mine Quilter Spool, and then Patterns by Jen because that's who made it, and then the date, June 2026. And so now I'm going to add this to the back of my wall hanging. And I do this for wall hangings and quilts. What I like to put it on the bottom, it'll be on the bottom right hand here, which means it's the bottom left hand here. It doesn't really matter where you put it. You could put it in the center, you could put it over here. Totally up to you. Okay, so I have that paper peeled off and I'm going to attach the heat and bond. And so again, I have it just a 1/2 inch smaller than the label so that I have this 1/4 inch area to kind of work with when I'm stitching this down. There's this edge that has the glue. It's a little rough. We're going to put that side down on the wrong side of your label. I'm going to eyeball the 1/4 inch and come in and bond the two together. All right, once that's done, we're gonna let that cool a minute before we pull the paper off. All right, now take that paper off. We have our glue and make sure that we have the wall hanging or the quilt the right way. And we're going to go ahead and attach this. Now I eyeball it where I want it to be on my quilt, usually a little bit away from the edge, so that I can get a nice stitch going around it. And we will use our iron and bond the two together with that glue. And then the next step is going to be to turn this and I just turn it and stitch it down because you can see we get these threads that come because it's fabric. So we'll go ahead and stitch that quickly. Okay, I'm going to use this cream just because it will blend in nicely with that label. Give yourself about 18 inches. That's kind of the sweet spot for thread length when we are working with our quilts. I'll show you how I get started and then I will finish it off, and then we'll go ahead and I will show you how to do the sleeve. I won't make you watch me sew this whole thing, but I do want to get it started, and then we'll go ahead and finish this off. So give it a little knot. Okay, so I have my knot, and I'm just gonna turn it a little bit. It's not gonna be 1/4 of an inch because we only have 1/4 of an inch that's not glued down. So it'll be about 1/8 of an inch, which is perfect. So I'm not gonna lose my little bumblebee antennae here. So I'm gonna start here so that my knot is underneath and hidden. And then fold this under, and I'm going to come up just like I did with the binding. So I'm going to get that edge and find where I came up here. I'm going to come up right above that in the edge of my label. And I'm going to go back down and come up about 1/4 of an inch. This will be a little bit fuzzier because it's a little smaller. The edge is a little smaller, and we've got all these threads that we're dealing with, but we will just tuck this in, finger press it a little bit, and then stitch all the way down. Just catching the edge of that label and just watching where your thread is coming so it's not catching the corner of the label or the corner of the wall hanging. And then also I'm using my finger back here to make sure I'm not popping through the front so that my stitches aren't showing on the front as well. I'm going to continue down the edge here, and I won't make you watch me all the way, but I will show you what I do with the corner when I get to it. Okay, as I come to this corner, I have it folded this way. I'm also going to tuck it under from the top before I get there. So I'm just gonna fold it and then fold it. Keep it like that. Okay, and then we're just gonna come in and catch both of those layers as you stitch. And then we're going to get to that corner. And just like I do with my binding, I'm going to do an extra stitch just to hold that down. And then continue stitching down that label. And then I do that with every corner. And then when I come here, I do the same thing where I use that quilting knot to knot it and bury my threads. I'm not going to get all the way around the corner with the thread that I have. I might, but it's going to be close, and I don't want to mess with a really short thread. So I'm going to take my stitching. I'm going to come down right where I came up, but I'm going to come up underneath this little tag here. So I'm hidden under there, and I'm just going to knot my thread here and start over with a fresh, little longer piece of thread. I don't want to mess with a short thread when I am trying to do a quilter's knot and tie this off and bury my thread. I'd rather have a little bit longer to work with. So that's how I just bury it underneath there if I don't have enough thread to work with. Okay, I have come to the end, so I'm going to do my quilter's knot now. And this is it looks a little different when it is already in the quilt. So it might look different than what you see when we're starting out. We're gonna wrap it 1, 2, 3. We're gonna come down right where we came in, come up a little bit, making sure we are not coming up through the front here, keeping this part taut, and pulling this through, popping the knot through, okay? And then pulling this taut again, and then clipping close, and then that disappears there. Okay, so then we've got our nice label. Everybody knows who made it, when we made it, who we made it for. If you made it for someone special, great time to put a little sweet message on there too. All right, so now our next step is going to be adding a hanging sleeve to the back of this as well. And we're gonna measure the top here for the size that we need. Now I'm going to show you for this little miniature, but this is how I would do it for any of the larger quilts that I would be making. You also, if you're going to be entering it into like a quilt show, which I really encourage you to do, they're not looking for perfection. We want to encourage those quilt shows to keep happening, and to do that we need to enter our quilts. So if you're entering them in, there are non-judged portions of quilt shows that you can enter your quilt into. I encourage you to do that. So they always have what they would like for their quilt sleeve sizes. So make sure you pay attention to what those are. They're usually have more to do with like the width, like 4 inches or so, because they need to be able to hang them up hang them up quickly. So pay attention to those measurements. Here's what I'm going to do for my miniature. Again, the steps are going to be the same, maybe not the measurements depending on the size of your quilt. So I want to come in and see where I'm at. And I'm measuring from inside the binding. So I'm at about 15 1/4. So I'm going to cut my sleeve piece at 15 1/4 because we're going to be taking it in on the sides for a seam allowance. So I'm going to go with that 15 1/4 inch measurement. And again, I'm going from inside the binding area. Okay, so I have my piece cut and I've gone 15 1/4 by 3 inches. And we are going to press these before we stitch. So first thing I want to do is press this wrong sides together, which is hard to see with this fabric that I've chosen to use, but wrong sides together, and we're going to press, fold it in half lengthwise, and just give it a good press. Something to remember, this is a 3 inch piece, and we're folding it in half, which makes it 1 1/2. And then we're going to have a 1/4 inch seam. So this is going to end up being 1 inch wide. So depending on what the width of your hanging rod is, you do want to make sure you have enough width for your hanging rod as well. So before you do this, make sure you have your measurements for the rod as well. So press this in half. I'm going to open this up. We're going to top stitch each edge. So I'm going to fold each end 1/4 inch in. I'm just going to eyeball it. You can measure it if you like, but about 1/4 inch in. And I'm going to press, again, just to give us that edge and to keep it in place until I get it over to the sewing machine. And I'll do it on this side as well. Okay, and now I'm going to take it to the machine. We're going to top stitch this. We're going to sew, and then we will flip and stitch it to the back of our wall hanging. All right, my piece is pressed and ready to go. The first thing I'm going to do is top stitch each edge. So just coming in, and I'm not going to adjust my stitch length or anything. You could, if you wanted a longer top stitching length, you sure could. We're just going to go about 1/8 inch from the edge that we pressed. And we'll do both sides. I do like to keep the thread a close match to the fabric if I can. But it doesn't really matter because it is on the back. Personal choice. So now we're going to fold this right sides together and stitch it at 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so we'll go ahead. So it's right sides together. I like to start a little bit in here and then back stitch and then come back. That way, then I don't have, so I'll trim this off a little bit more, but I won't have those threads sticking out that I have to clip down here because I started here and back stitched and then started. Those threads that I begin with, they're here, they're tucked in. I don't have them sticking out on the edge. Just something I like to do to keep it so that it looks nice and clean. All right, so 1/4 of an inch regular stitch, right sides together. I'm going to take a couple stitches and then back stitch. And 1/4 of an inch all the way down. Okay, now as I come to the end, I'm going to stitch all the way to the edge, and then I'm going to back stitch again so that once I lock those stitches in place, I can trim those. And those threads now, I'm going to clip, I got lots of threads, I'm going to clip these threads and they won't stick out towards the edge here. It'll be a nice clean finish. Okay, we're going to go turn this outside, right side out, and attach it to our wall hanging. All right, so here is my sewn sleeve, and I'm going to turn it out using the tip that my mom gave me years ago with a safety pin. There's many tools out there that you can use to turn these out, little tube things that you can get, but this works just as well. So use what you have on hand. We'll just turn this inside, right side out. Okay. And once that is done, we'll give this another little press. All right, so we are going to press this. We are going to press it with the seam in the middle. So right down that crease that we pressed earlier, now we're going to use that as our guide to center our seam. So we're just going to kind of finger press this down, and your fabric will kind of depend on how fussy you have to be with this. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It's going against the back of the quilt, so we don't have to worry about it too much. We're going to go ahead and press. And our sleeve is now ready to attach to our wall hanging. So we want to attach the sleeve to the top of the wall hanging about, depending on what you're going to be using this for. Now this is just a small wall hanging, so I'm not going to have it too far from the top, maybe 1/2 inch or so. If it's a larger quilt going to a show, again, you'll want to look at what those measurements are. Just go ahead and read through those requirements. Once you have decided where you want your sleeve to be, go ahead and pin it in place. It will move on you, so throw a couple of pins in there. I do recommend using a safety pin instead of stick pins, as the stick pins will get you. So go ahead, throw some safety pins in there just to hold it in place while you are stitching. Then you don't have to worry about it shifting on you. Make sure it's where you want it. And then we're just going to whip stitch this in place. It doesn't have to be a fancy stitch, and it doesn't matter what thread color you use because it is on the back. So we're just going to quickly add this. Now, the stitches do not have to be uniform. You don't have to worry about them being a perfect 1/4 inch apart or anything like that, because again, this is just an added piece to the back, so it doesn't have to be fancy. Okay, so I'm going to start kind of in the middle. I'm going to pull through from underneath here so I can hide my knot. So I'm going to go ahead, kind of mark where I need to come out, and then we're just going to start stitching. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's basically the same stitch that we did with our binding. We are just going to catch the top layer of our backing fabric and then the edge of our sleeve and pull that through, making sure that as we go along, we aren't accidentally coming through the front. So you want to make sure you're just getting the top layer of your backing fabric. So if you keep your hand right here, you'll feel it poke through if you go too far. So I'm going to sew all the way around, including the end. When I run out of thread, I will go ahead and make a knot behind the sleeve and hide it there, and then just start just like I did with the beginning here, and until I come around to the end, and then I will do a quilter's knot at the end for this as well. All right, so just quickly, I am at the end, so I'm going to just be careful as I stitch this and hold that top opening. I'm going to hold it out of the way so that I don't accidentally stitch it. So just take your time. This one takes a little bit of patience. We don't want to rush through this and catch that top edge, and because then it's stitched closed and then we have a problem. So we're gonna just take our time, keep that top edge out of the way, while at the same time making sure we're not pulling it out too far, because we want to keep this lined up. And just come up to that corner and make your way down to the other side. All right, I am coming to the end of my stitching. And as I always do, I'm going to take one back stitch and then a quick quilter's knot, and our wall hanging is officially nicely labeled, because we want everybody to know who made it and when it was made, and the hanging sleeve for your wall hanging. So now you can display it proudly and show it off to all of your quilty friends. I hope that was helpful for you, and I will see you in 2 weeks for the next Snippets with Patterns by Jen. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it. Go make something you love.